Hello, my name is Wambui Machua, and I am the owner of Spice of Africa. Today we're going to make some of my favorite traditional dishes that I grew up with in Kenya. We're going to be making sukuma wiki, which is collard greens, samosas, and we are also going to make ugali, which is hot water cornbread. To start, we're going to start with the sukuma wiki, which is the collard greens. I grew up eating collard greens in Kenya, and we actually used to grow this myself. We had a kitchen garden, and I grew up with farmers markets as well. So I used to grow all kinds of vegetables and take them to the farmers market, and that's how I got my pocket money. And the way that we do this in Kenya, we start by splitting them and just tearing them off one by one, or you can take the easy way of doing it and just actually take a knife and chop off the stalks right there. What we then do is we roll this. You just take as much as you can, as much as you're comfortable with, and you roll them up. Because I always say presentation is important when you're presenting food. So rather than just tearing them off into big pieces, you want to go ahead and cut them into little strips. And that is more presentable when you cook and present your food. And I'm going to go ahead and do that now. This is a long process, especially if you do catering like I do. When you're cooking for about 200 people, you don't necessarily want to do this because usually the strips need to be a little bit thinner than this, but when you're cooking for the amount of people that I do, it's kind of difficult to do that. So I don't concentrate on making them really thin, but just try to get them a little bit medium-sized, and that's what I'm going to do with this one. Okay, I already have some sukuma wiki in the pot over there we had done earlier, so I'm just going to add this, and I'm just going to stir this and mix it up with my tomatoes and onions and garlic and a little bit of olive oil. You don't need to add water to this because the sukuma wiki already has its own moisture. And you just keep it on low heat and cook it for about 10 minutes. And it should be ready to enjoy. Next, we're going to be making samosas. Samosas are an all-time favorite in Kenya. I grew up eating samosas. But the difference between here and in Kenya is that in Kenya, I had to knead my dough by hand. And since we don't have mixers, and I grew up without electricity, we couldn't have a mixer. At that time, I didn't know what a mixer was. So we had to knead all our dough by hand. But since I'm here in Portland now, and Beaverton, what I do is I use my egg roll wrappers. These are egg roll wrappers, and this is what I use as my shell. And today I'm going to be making ground turkey samosas. A lot of my customers who eat meat actually don't eat red meat. So I choose to use ground turkey, but in Kenya we actually use ground beef. Next, we're going to mix it up with some onions. These are raw onions and cilantro, and they're not cooked. We use, these ones are usually put in raw, but the ground turkey is. And then we have a little bit of seasoning salt. So I take all that and I mix it all up in here together to create my filling. And a little bit of my seasoning salt. And I just mix it well. Now, the trick with making samosas this way comes in the folding. You have to fold your wrap properly, otherwise you get some real interesting shapes. And I call this African origami, and you will see why in just a second. And this is where the trick comes in now, is in the folding of this. You want to fold it into a triangle and make sure that the flash line over here is facing your belly button. And then you take your right hand, the flap on your right hand side, and you bring it over to your left, and you do the same thing with your left. The flap, you bring it over, and you're creating a nice little cone, just like that. This is where you use your water as the glue, because you're going to seal the one side, which is on the right-hand side, depending whether you're left-handed or right-handed. I'm right-handed, so I normally seal the right-hand side. And you just dip your water, just a little bit of water, not too much, because this is flour. It does get sticky if you use too much water. And then you just push down firmly, and you have a nice little pocket. And right in the middle here is where you put your filling in. Make sure that you don't overstuff it, just enough. And what I normally do now is I push down with my index finger just to make sure that you have a tight little pocket. And then you fold it over. Now we call these two the little ears. We don't do anything with those. We just leave them open just like that. Some people try to tuck them in and try to make it look nice and pretty, but that just gives it a totally different shape. And then you take the first flap over here, you dip your finger in water, and you just put a little bit of water right there, and you bring it over. And the second flap, not too much water, and right on top, and you have your nice little triangle. That's your samosa. So the next step is putting these samosas into either our pot or deep fryer. In this case, I have a small deep fryer, and I put about 6 of them. Make sure that they fit in comfortably so that they are not on top of each other. So about 6 should be able to fit in. And I've already preheated my oil, so it's at a temperature that when I drop them in, it shouldn't take too long for them to be a golden light brown color, which is the desired result. And there we go. We have a perfect result. The next thing we're going to make is ugali, also known as hot water cornbread. A favorite in Kenya. It's eaten with the sukuma wiki that we just made. And the reason why it's such a popular dish in Kenya is because there are a lot of families in Kenya who don't have the budget to buy meat products. You know, beef, chicken, lamb might be a little bit more expensive. So when you combine ugali, which is the hot water cornbread, and the sukuma wiki, collard greens, that serves as a filler that can stretch your week. And there's a reason why it's called sukuma wiki. The name loosely translated means push the week. So when you make ugali and sukuma wiki, you're extending your week because it's a filler. I'm just making a small quantity, not a large quantity. Do that. And this is a dish that we reserve to make last because it goes really quickly. It only takes about 5 to 10 minutes to cook. So, and you have to stir it really quickly once you get started. Reason being is you don't want any lumps to form. The tool that I'm using today is called a moiko. I had to specifically bring this in from Kenya in order to teach my cooking classes. I used to use the bamboo spoons, and they used to break on me. And so I had to bring in my own muiko in order to be able to do this. Make sure you keep it on the fire just like that. Let it cook within itself, and essentially right now it's ready. So you get in and you flip it, and you have your ugali. So here today we have prepared the ugali, the sukuma wiki, and we had pre-prepped some lamb stew that goes this. So this is a complete dish of what you normally would eat in Kenya, especially the ugali and the sukuma wiki. As for the lamb stew, you can use chicken, or you can use other vegetables, or you can use beef, and that all goes together. And remember, we said that ugali gets its flavor from the dishes that you eat it with. The other dish that we made were the samosas, and samosas come with a side salad, or they go very well with our chai. That's the Kenyan tea that has milk in it. So for any of these dishes, please come see us at Spice of Africa. We are at 722 Southeast 10th Avenue in Portland, and that's between 10th and Morrison. And you can also check out our website, which is spiceofafrica.com. Thank you.